One of the foremost skills your ancestors learned was how to read people, or another way to say that is how to judge people. It's taken a pretty bad inference lately. It seems to be synonymous with criticism, that if you're judging someone, then you are criticising and you are making an assessment of their bad things. And we're consistently scolded by the internet social media commenters that how you should not judge people. Oh, really? Well, being able to accurately judge people and evaluate people has been an essential tool for most of our history. It's not really possible to avoid, and you do it many times a day, whether you realise you do it or you don't. One thing for sure is that your ancestors were pretty good at it, and that's something for which you should be rather grateful. If the one small error of judgment, and you would be history or not history. You wouldn't be here at all. Neither would I, of course. But judging people means interpreting things like their appearance, movement, everything about them. And failure to do this accurately, it used to be fatal. Not so much today, obviously, but you still might get ripped off or at least criticised or whatever. But we've been around as a separate species now for 300,000 years. And until relatively recently, we shared the planet with several other human species. And for 200,000 years, our acquaintances and friends and relatives and the neighbouring tribe maybe were about the only people that we would be aware of that exist. Maybe a few doubtfuls cruising through the area, etc. Well, 12,000 years ago, the Earth entered a short warm period. I mean, short in geological terms. It's called the Holocene. And in geophysical terms, it's 30-odd thousand years probably likely, and it's been going for about 10 or 12,000 now. Now, your ancestors, with their oversized brains, were pretty quick to capitalise on this warm period, suddenly warm, where they're not freezing their tits off. And they discovered farming in a big way. And this provided the capability to not only feed themselves a bit more reliably, but you could have more kids. And more kids that survived meant more likely that your genes are passed on and more people to help with all the other chores and that sort of thing. But before that, it was just granddad chasing animals with a stick to make sure that grandma was nice to him and to feed the kids, of course. But after a little while, I mean, within a few centuries, numbers had started to grow pretty rapidly. And there were villages and then there were towns. And, a few thousand years ago, even London was first formed from a village. But that was just 400 generations back. And our basic instincts take a very, very long time to change, like thousands of generations, in some cases, tens of thousands of generations. And we're talking about instincts here, judging people, instincts that were vital just 400 generations back. Your ancestors knew they were pretty safe with their own tribe, with their own family and that sort of thing. But with all the others, no, you needed to be very circumspect. Some of them might have been friendly, maybe not. But assuming they were friendly wasn't a mistake you were going to make too often. That wasn't going to be a good thing. Those who did not develop the art of judging very well, they disappeared and none of their descendants are here today. Your ancestors, the ones that survived, handed down this finely tuned instinct to distrust strangers and to keep them away from yourself and your possessions and your family. We moved into ever more population expansion and travel. Our wider circle of strangers, the doubtfuls, the individuals that we just knew by sight, that grew at a pace much faster than the previous 200,000 years of evolution had prepared us for. those things were still vital just 400 generations back. And today we're surrounded by a few friends, maybe a few not so friendly people, but tens of thousands of these so-called doubtfuls or people that you don't really know. And the faces of that we do know or recognise via the media, they're still processed with the same ancient mental tools that our ancestors used. And so that means that we have to deal with these instincts, these prejudices and so on that we naturally have. We have to deal with them at an intellectual level. Racial and cultural intolerance, for example. That's a bad side effect from the instinct to distrust strangers. Not to mention it's a very bad thing to do to someone who's done nothing wrong to you, and just merely from a different group. But that instinct there needs to be controlled at an intellectual level. And we most of us are aware that that's how we need to cooperate and be in society that way. Just because we're programmed, though, to be wary of strangers and to be judgmental, I suppose, judging what people are like, that doesn't mean that you should automatically then restrain yourself entirely from doing that. I mean, we have the ability to set aside the downside of our instincts and use our intellect to assess a situation. There's no prospect for avoiding judging. You're always going to be doing that anyway, but you can ameliorate at least the effects of any redundant prejudices that come through our basic evolution, our training, our instincts that we've carried from the past. Now, the feeling of being judged by others can be uncomfortable for many people. And if you are a caring individual, you might try to avoid making any judgments of anyone because you feel uncomfortable and you think, well, they would feel uncomfortable, I'm not going to do that. Well, that's fair, but someone who is completely trusting of will inevitably get hurt. So it really doesn't make much sense to do that. And you can't really avoid judging people. You must make some assessment of what you feel and think about a person at first appearance and then later on. We'll get into the presentation later. I'll talk about that on another time. Speaking of being judged, this comes up, I was just about to mention that, in two other chapters at least in the book. This is The Sweet Life on a Sour Budget, my book. But I'll be doing a video on these two shortly. One of them in particular is the problem of social anxiety. It's the fear of being judged. And it comes up in all sorts of social situations. And God forbid that you're ever asked to do a speech. I mean, that's just social anxiety on steroids. That's a horrible situation. Fortunately, though, there are ways to control it to a very large extent. And we'll be talking about that in another video coming up very soon. Being judged also comes up in a chapter on our presentation, which I alluded to a minute ago, how we appear to others, how our appearance affects the judgments that they inevitably make. All people do. And so that's another area where judging is an important aspect of our life, and one that has a massive impact on the way that we enjoy our life, that we have a happy life. After all, that's the goal here, to have a good time. And you try and have a good time every day because there's no more after this. I'll be addressing that one too in upcoming videos, so there's no need to dial up Amazon and get the book. You can if you want, but if you just wait for the videos, I'll cover these chapters and the chapters that make it more likely that we are going to enjoy our lives and make the best of what we've got now. There are the tendency to be put off by the social media busybodies who they have no idea how many times a day they judge people. They have to, they must do. It's instinct. We all do. And I think those people have dramatically less idea of just how critical it is to our journey through life, particularly if we're going to have a happy life without finding ourselves at the wrong end of some misplaced judgment that we made. The last word, or my last word on judging, is not criticising. It's a reminder that our judgment is not infallible. And giving others a chance to show that they've got the potential to be friends is an intelligent way to deal with your instinctive judgments of people. I have an example I've quoted a few times. Senor Christopher Columbus is an historical example of the consequences of being too friendly. Not Christopher the inept, but the people that he met. In the highlight of his limited career, he managed to win a mission from the Spanish royal family. And in that mission, even though he was Italian, he stumbled upon an island in the Bahamas just 2 months and 6,000 kilometres after setting sail to encircle the globe, which was rather larger than what he imagined. He wasn't big on details either, and he wasn't sure where he was, so he described the island he almost ran into as having, I quote him here, very green trees and many ponds and fruits of various kinds. Very helpful, Christopher, thank you. Which is why no one else to this day knows where he landed either. He didn't know either. Well, after sailing around for a bit, he set up camp in Haiti. That's the country that occupies the western half of the island of Hispaniola. And he recorded this. Now get this. They brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for the glass beads and hawksbills. Now, I'm not sure what hawksbills are, but they were obviously a thing. And he went on to say, and he recorded in his journal, in his log, I suppose, I don't know, they were well built, with good bodies and handsome features. They do not bear arms. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them and make them do whatever we want. Well, the charming Senor Columbus did just that, forcing them to look for gold and build a settlement. He sent 500 slaves to the Spanish Queen as a gift. She was horrified and sent them back because if he had discovered them, then they were technically Spanish citizens. And anyway, he had a few more faux pas and a few more voyages. They were just about as successful as the first one. And at the end of his third failed voyage, he was arrested. That was after the Queen discovered that his 1,200 troops that he had taken on these 3 or 4 ships had killed all but a few hundred of the 250,000 Taino native population of Haiti. That was a big thank you for a warm reception and not being judgmental about Mr. Columbus. He did wangle a 4th expedition, but he wrecked 2 of the 4 ships and went home in disgrace. But as a footnote, he called the people Indians, going to his grave convinced that he had sailed to India, which in the direction he was going would have taken another 30,000 kilometres via South America and New Zealand and Australia. And he never set foot on mainland North America to discover it. And anyway, 2 million people already lived there, so the whole discovery idea was a nonsense anyway. Anyway, the point of that story is that even if we could avoid judging people, we are not best served by being ill-prepared for the worst in others, but still looking for the best in others. Next week, we'll take a look at fixing social anxiety. I hope you don't have it, but anyway, that's what we'll be looking at probably. Or we might do presentation. Anyway, whatever. Hopefully I'll catch you next week. Oh, one other thing too, if you do subscribe, you may get a note from YouTube to tell you that the videos come up. And if you like, or even dislike, I think, but if you like the video, then it's quite possible that it'll be shown to other people who maybe don't understand as much about judging and have as clear an idea as you do. And that might help someone else. Anyway, over to you. I'll see you in, another week, hopefully. Cheers. Have a happy life. Uru.